Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson. Each week I'll be bringing you a self-care expert or a message to help you to discover how to live your best life and understand your mind-body connection. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let the Studio Chat begin. Hey guys, welcome to this episode. This episode is a little bit different as I share my date night with myself on Saturday night and what I did. So I had an emotional release therapy session with Steph from Happy Healing Hypno, and I wanted to do something different for myself. Like a lot of us, when we think of self-care or self-love, we'll read a book or have some time out or watch some Netflix or, kind of do something like that. And with emotional release therapy, it's where there's three modalities that take place in this session. There's talk therapy, hypnotherapy, and somatic body release work. So join me in this episode as I chat to Steph all about my experience with emotional release therapy. Enjoy, guys. Hey, Steph, welcome to the Studio Chat podcast again. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so good, thank you.
I'm really excited to have a chat to you today because, as I said in the intro, I took myself out on a bit of a date on Saturday night, and you joined me.
I did.
And you took me through a emotional release therapy session.
Yes.
And I really wanted to, because I've never heard of this before, and I wanted to do a session with you because obviously I wanted to find out what it was like. And I had such an incredible experience, and it was really moving, and I learned a lot about myself. And I thought, you know what, there may be someone else out there listening to my podcast that may need this, and that's why I thought I'd love to have you back on to walk everyone through my emotional release therapy session. What does it mean? What happened? And I'll share my experience as well.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and it's so brave and generous of you to share your story within what happened. Obviously it's personal, and so it's really nice that you're being so vulnerable so that other people can see what it's all about and hopefully feel that they can also do it.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think I shared with you on the session on Saturday night when we did it, the Barbara of even 3 years ago would never have even thought about doing something like this. I had done a lot of mind work with my psychologist and a lot of healing with my mind and connecting why I thought the way I did and why I kept repeating behaviors and patterns and thought patterns and things like that. So that was really helpful for me. And moving to Australia, I have had spiritual things happen to me that the universe has gone, well, we're actually going to make you believe in this stuff. So whether you do or not, Barbara, when you move to Australia, we're actually going to give you no choice, that we're going to show you, you know what I mean? You have to, you've got no choice. So that's been a beautiful thing. And then when I met you and discovered the work that you do, I just thought, I always want to learn about myself. I'll never stop learning. And that's when I thought, oh my God, this sounds so scary in a good way, because a lot of us don't want to emotional release therapy, any kind of therapy. That may bring up some uncomfortable stuff. What's going to happen? Because it is a form of hypnotherapy. In a way, some parts of it were. And I was thinking, like, you can think, oh my God, what's going to happen? Are you going to find out, like, all my dirty laundry? You're going to find out all my deep, dark secrets.
Yeah.
So that's why I just thought, you know what, bugger it, I'm going to do it, because the only way that you can heal and learn about yourself is getting vulnerable like this. And so I'd love for us to just talk about, like what you do in a session, but like what we kind of did together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to ask you, like, how do you feel since it? Because when was it? Like 4 days ago now?
Yes, 4 days.
Yeah. When it was.
Counting on my fingers. Yeah, 4 days.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I feel I slept really well that night.
Yeah.
But straight after, I felt like a high. It was just, I felt like when you go out with when you have a really fun night with a girlfriend, or you're laughing heaps and you like come home when you've been to an event or something, you go, oh, I've just had a really good night. Like that
Mhm.
was the feeling I got from having a session with you. I was just like, oh, I feel really on a high.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
really happy. I feel really good. And then during these last 4 days, even though I've been extremely like busy work-wise, in myself, I felt really good. Like almost it's cemented that I've got my own back even more.
Yes. Yeah.
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 That's
Yeah.
how I've been feeling.
Yeah. And I know, because we've been speaking in between, like you've already made some further connections with things like from your childhood, and like, you know, even things like going back to the gym, and like little things where you're like just tweaking your day-to-day life now. And when you sent me all the photos of you as a child, which we're going to go into later because we'll talk about the inner child stuff later, but I was just like, oh my god. And it's so funny because that's exactly the girl that I was envisioning as well. Like we were so in that together. And when you were describing you as a child, I was like, yep, I'm literally, I can picture this, I'm here with you. And it was just so, it was so lovely, it was really nice.
Yeah. So anyone listening, when you hear this stuff called the inner child, or you hear the stuff we're going to be talking about, please keep listening. If you're listening to this going, oh god, it's a load of like woo-woo stuff, like I promise you, hand on heart guys, I used to be that person. And I really want you to stay to the end of this podcast and listen to the whole thing. And the reason why I'm doing this podcast with Steph too is, oh, I'm going to be sending my clients to her, and it's such a cool piece in your, I always talk about your self-care toolkit, and there's so many ways of, it's not just eating or moving your body, it's so many other things. And you can give this a go once, and I can guarantee you'll be actually really glad you did. It's a really safe space. I felt really comfortable with Steph, and I was really vulnerable. And okay, so let's dive
Yeah,
in.
yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is become really clear on an objective, which is, sometimes it's hard because sometimes there's so many aspects in our life that we feel aren't working, they aren't aligned, we're not happy in, or whatever it is. And it can feel very overwhelming at times. And obviously we're doing a session. We can't hit everything, right? So we have to like become a bit more in tune as to what the objective is, and work with one sort of limiting belief. So I asked you to fill out a few questions before the session even began, so I could get a kind of understanding of where you were at. And when the session starts and when we start talking, that in itself develops, and that takes us on a whole new side of what actually is the true issue or feeling, or whatever it is. But you were quite clear that you wanted to become more connected, or more connected with your mind and body connection, and that you wanted to release fear. You wanted to stop getting in your own way, because you felt and you knew that you have so much potential, but for some reason you are in ways not letting yourself fully step into that. Can you remember that that's what you originally put?
Yeah, and holding myself back. Like I know what I want in life, so clear,
Yeah.
but I look at it and I go, oh, how do I get there? Or am I going to get there? Am I silly even wanting these things? Or am I silly even wanting this? And it's like, no. I've dreamt of this as a child or as a teenager. I know what I want. But yeah, there's this connect of almost giving myself a bit of a kick up the bum, but in a positive way, going, I don't want to be a 9 to 5 person. I don't want to just have the same thing every day. I want to challenge myself and push myself, and also be a role model for other people. And I'm always going to have stuff to work on. That's why I know I'm never going to be perfect, but I feel like there was a missing link, especially like going back to the gym, because since training, my whole life and my mindset and everything, my values and beliefs have completely changed from 3 years ago. So before, I'd only go to the gym, really, to be honest, because I wanted to look a certain way.
Yeah.
I still do, but my values and beliefs have really completely changed. My whole brain's been rewired. I see things from a different way. So it's kind of like a bit of a new model Barbara in a way. And I'm like, oh, there's a missing link. Like I can normally walk into a gym and train. Why why can't I just go and do it? Like, you know what I mean? And that's why I wanted to see you. There's that missing link for me.
Yeah. And there was so many, if you write, your name in the middle of the page, you had so many branches of things that because you're so self-aware. So you're almost like hyper aware, like, oh, like this and this and this. But yeah, so basically to fine tune that and to really decide where we were going to take this session, we started off by, me asking you all these questions and really getting to understand your own emotional self-assessment on where you are, and really getting you to, again, when you answer me and when you tell me things, that it's coming from a heart space and that it's not coming from your head. Because we get so, like I said to you in the original podcast, we get so caught up with a narrative, with what we think we should say, even what we think we feel, right? Like, no, I feel this, I know, I've got it, like, I feel loved, I've got this, whatever it is, we think we think a lot, but do we actually sit in and go, oh, but honestly, how do I really feel? And like you were saying with like those dirty little secrets, sometimes we feel that way about our own emotions. We feel shame in feeling certain ways, and it's like, no, we just need to feel it and be really, really honest, because when we're honest, then we can shift it. If we pretend all the time that we're happy, but actually there are elements of sadness, we need to deal with the elements of sadness so that we can shift. And before even going into that further, I just really want to make it so, like, I just want to make it really be known that we as humans feel all of the emotions. So just because we have sadness doesn't mean we don't feel happy. Just because we feel grateful doesn't mean sometimes we don't. Like, so I think that's where people get stuck. It's like, yourself, you are a happy person, you live a happy life, you love what you do, you're happy. But are there elements of sadness within you? Of course there are. I can, for myself, like, I live my life really, really happily. Like, I'm good. When I really tune in these moments, like, do I have other things that are sitting in there? Yes, of course, because I'm a human. I have anger and, insecurities or sadness as well. Like, so I think just to start off, really feeling a sense of peace, that we can say that we feel it all, so that's the first thing. So when we took you through your questions, we won't go through all of them, but some that were sort of more pressing was that feeling of, when you really tune in, how alone do you feel? And even though we can be surrounded by people and we can be so busy with work and friends and family and loved ones, even pets, how alone do we feel? And yours was reasonably high for that. So we had to acknowledge that first and foremost and see where that really stemmed from. And then another one that was quite strong for you was, how supported do you feel? And that was low. You felt, 2 for that. So again, that loneliness and that lack of support actually ties in quite nicely together in a way. Like, they kind of do actually come hand in hand, don't they? So if we're staying with that theme, I don't know, maybe you want to talk on that as to why you personally feel like that and what came up for you.
Well, with those questions, it's because my whole life I have been alone and unsupported, and I've done everything off my own back. So I haven't had any family support or any beautiful friends and stuff, but they have their own lives and they check in and stuff, and they're beautiful and they hold space for me, and it's not to do with that, but it's just what most of us should have in our lives, should have that foundation, should have a parent or should have family to support. And that from basically the day I came into this earth, there's been nothing. And so I've just kind of had to, everything I know, everything I've learned has been on my own. And that's why it's taken me a long time to figure things out. I got there, but it's been hard because I didn't have any role models, or I didn't have anyone possibly not showing me the way, but hey, should you do A or should you do B, Barbara? But I had nothing. So Barbara would do A, B, C, D, E, F, and then, oh shit, which one? So that's why I felt like alone and support, and alone and not supported. And I've always wanted a family of my own, or, you know, someone to have my own little family unit to, I'd like to experience that before I'm not here anymore. Like, just to experience that unconditional love from a human, and that support that no matter what, we've got your back, and just to ease that pressure that I carry on my shoulders every day of just like, people can look at my life and they're like, oh, you're so lucky, you've only got you to look after, or, you know, they a lot of people I know fantasize about my life for some weird reason and think it's amazing. I'm like, guys, I still have to pay bill, like, it's still one of me, but I still have to do everything that you have to do, the washing and the dishes and the bills and the work, and just because there's one of me, sure, might be a bit easier, but I still have those pressures. But I've had no one in my life to be able to, oh, can I just ring you up for advice? Or, hey, in between breakups and stuff, can I sleep on your couch for 6 months or until I get on my feet? I haven't had any of that. And I think when you asked me those two questions, nearly at 42, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of being alone and unsupported. And I had to be honest with myself, and I can play this, I'm not even that tough girl anymore. Like, oh, I don't need anyone, I'm fine. It's like, no, I'm open to that. I'm allowing to that. I'm ready for that. I want to have help. I want to have someone that supports me and helps me. And that was the first time that I actually acknowledged it and said to you, oh yeah, I feel unsupported, because it's very vulnerable and very hard to admit that, yeah, I do feel lonely. It's a good lonely. It's not like a crying or sad lonely. I want people to hear the difference in that. It's just, I know I'm made to love people, and just to feel supported, and just to feel, mainly from the supported point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was one that came up that was a huge shift. It was how judged do you feel? And you felt really judged. You know, you felt 10 out of 10 judged. Do you want to talk on that and where that came from?
Yeah, it was, again, this has been prominent, gosh, I think from what I can remember, from about 3 years old, hearing adults around me, like, and I've said this in podcasts, I've said this on my Instagram page, and that people always commenting, your beautiful hair, Barbara, blonde ringlets, beautiful eyes, beautiful skin, beautiful clothes. Like, it's always aesthetics. It's always, but I have a beautiful soul and a nice personality. So they would comment on that too, but it would always be like, I remember getting changed once and a lady saying, oh, your daughter should be into modeling, whatever. And my dad just laughed at her and said, her? You're talking about my daughter? Like, oh my God, no. Right. And so it was just always, like, I used to get teased at primary school because the boys used to think, it's funny what boys are like when they're at primary school. And really it's not a big deal, but they used to like, do you brush your teeth with white out? You know, we used to call it twink in New Zealand. So it's like that white stuff that you used to paint on when you used to write with pen to ink it out. So the boys in primary school used to all tease me, oh, you brush your teeth with twink because they're so white. You know?
Imagine getting used to that. It's like, that's what everyone wants these days.
back then, and I just had normal teeth, right? Like, it wasn't anything, but obviously for some reason all the boys thought it was weird that I had white teeth. And then, they teased me about that. And then as I got into intermediate and into high school, and then it quickly changed into, like, anyone I met, even my ex-husband. Oh, it's funny, I've just remembered this now. I met all his gym mates and everyone, and I got the nickname, which, gosh, it's going to sound really up myself when I share this, but this is what I mean by being judged. They called me 5-star because I was like, because obviously my ex-husband, you know, when you always meet a guy, they always say, oh, the guy's punching and stuff, which I hate that anyway. But my nickname at the gym was, oh my God, to my ex-husband, is 5-star coming? And I was like, oh my God. It was quite nice. But anyway, and then through my life, it's always been, especially the men I've dated, have always liked to comment about how big my wrists are, or how big my legs are, or how big my back is, and you just put this into a big pot and get a big stirring spoon. And I've always been judged that I'm too loud, or when I was earning good money, you know, back at home, I would buy boots, whatever, and be like, oh gosh, you're treating yourself a lot, or you're buying. Like, I was always judged on any angle that you could look at. It was like through jealousy, through envy, through I know people have always said to me, oh, I wish I could be like you. You know, it has been, some people have never hidden it from me. Some people have said, oh, I wish I could look like you, or be like you, or have your life. And I'm like, oh my God, like, oh, it's just, I've seen a side to human beings which fascinates me, but it's always been judged in some way. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, a lot of your judgment came from people judging you on your looks. So it was built in from a young age that looks were something that became, I guess, quite important, really, because you felt like your value was based on it.
Looks were everything. Two things I want to share is, in my childhood, we were, and it's teeth, funny enough, this one's teeth related. We were never allowed to have hard lollies at home. And if we did, if our father would hear us, like, you know, if you had a hard lolly and you like would bite it.
Bite it, yeah.
Whack for it, because it would damage our teeth. And then you're too young for this, but when I was at primary school, we had these jelly shoes, which are kind of plastic looking jelly with glitter in them.
I know exactly what they are. Yeah.
So all my friends were getting them. And because they were from like a cheap off reject shop, my dad was like, oh, we don't, and we weren't loaded or anything, but he was like, no, we don't shop there, Barbara. And then I was like, but all my friends have got the jelly shoes, and why can't I have the jelly shoes? He's like, because they will wreck the stunt of your feet, and they might distort your feet, and you don't want to have ugly feet, so I'm not buying them for you. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I was brought up around. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I just want the pretty shoes. And then my dad's like, we don't shop at that shop. And I was like, ew, okay. And then the other one was, oh, and then, no, I don't want you to have them. And this is like, I would have been about 6 or 7 maybe. And no, you're not going to have them because they will distort your feet. You're not going to have ugly feet. They will wreck the growth of your feet, and you blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Imagine that being said to a little girl.
It's so interesting, isn't it, when we look back at all these things now? Like, even these stories like didn't come up in your session, but they're coming in now because you're like, oh my God, another realization. And that's what it is. It's all about unpacking and retelling narratives and understanding where that maybe stemmed from. Like, you know, from the sounds of it, your dad actually had good intent, you know, but he didn't realize what that was actually gonna evolve into, a lot of insecurity and a lot of valuing looks over everything else, you know. But really he's just projecting onto you what he wants you to be, which is none of your business. But as a child, you don't know that. You know, you can't see that. Yeah. So obviously, like, we spoke a lot about your life. I don't know if there's necessarily anything directly that you want to share about that, but what we then did was, after I kind of got a really good understanding about your life, about your history, about how you feel about yourself, all of those things, and after I asked you all of the questions and you rated everything from 1 to 10, could really start fine-tuning where your limiting beliefs were, or what you really felt, what you really felt was stopping you. So once we then got into the sort of hypnosis part of it, and we put the music on and you relaxed and you breathed into your answers and all things like that, I asked you, to say sentences such as, I feel unloved, I feel unsupported, I feel unworthy. And we were trying to pick what it was that was the stuck part, and we fell on, I can't do it. Right? You said that feels like an 8 out of 10. I feel like that's what it is. I can't do it. And like, kind of, we both realized that that's where we want to go. Like, that's where we then followed the feeling, which ultimately then led us to unpacking that further. And it was, I'm sad. So do you want to maybe talk a bit on that, where that feeling came from, that I can't do it? You remember?
Don't know if I can, because I was pretty relaxed then. So I might have been. Yeah, you might have like hypnotized me to that other place.
I can remind you if you want.
Yeah, remind me, because I can't remember.
It was okay, so let me just, I can remember the child bit 100%. That it was when you were in the garden with your dad, and he said that you weren't allowed to do, so, like you couldn't help, you weren't allowed to do things, and you wanted to help. Can you remember that or no?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, like feeling stuck. I don't know even how I got to that. This is how
Yeah, I
cool, this is how cool the session is. So Steph is saying to me, she got me to repeat all these things like what you just heard, and then I was like, no, I feel really stuck. So we started to work on that. And she's like, okay, can you picture a time? And so when someone asks you this, because all of a sudden your mind goes blank, can you picture a time? And my mind goes, no, I'm not going to picture anything. And I'm like, great. And then picture a time when you felt stuck. And it was so weird. I had this vision of my dad was always working. He had his own business, and he would work 24/7, but on the odd occasion he might be in the garden or something. And I had this vision of me. God, how old was I, Steph? I think I might have been
you were 5. Yeah.
And out with him, and I can still visualize it now, out with him in the garden. And I always just wanted to, I was stuck to him like glue. Whenever he was around, I'd follow him like a man, like literally wouldn't leave him alone. He would be out in the garden, and I'd just be wanting to be around him, and I wanted to help, and obviously he would never let me help or do anything. And he'd just be like, no, like you just, my nickname was Bubba, like he'd just be like, no, Bubba, you just stand there. Do you know what you're really good at, Barbara? And I'd be like, and this is my dad, and I'd be like, no. And he's like, and everyone's gonna laugh because this is so true. He's like, you're really good at talking. So what I want you to do is just stand there and just talk to daddy. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd talk the whole, he wasn't listening. I would talk for hours on end, but I couldn't, I was useless. And I knew he wasn't listening. I knew he wasn't paying attention, because I'd ask him questions, and he'd be like, I'd be like, Dad, you're not listening. He'd be, oh, sorry. What, like, obvious. So I felt stuck because I felt like I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard. I could never do it. My parents would never let me help or do anything. So that's where that stuck feeling was.
Yeah. If we just I really want to unpack that part of your session more, because there was a lot there. But to make it easier for the listeners to follow, so I just remembered where the first memory went. So when you said, like, I can't do it, and I asked you to really feel that feeling of I can't do it, that hopeless feeling, that those emotions that come up when you feel that, and where does that sit? And you said, in the chest and in the heart. I said, when did you last feel like that? And obviously the last time we felt this way is probably quite recently. And you said, it was recent. It was at home. I was alone. I had so many things going on. I had bills to pay, all of this. And you felt alone and stuck and unsupported, and just that general feeling of like, I just can't do it, right? And then we used that feeling as fuel to trace where you felt this before. And that's the whole thing with the hypnotherapy, is we trace back and back and back and back and back and back. So then you took me to a time where you were 7, and it was something about you getting shoes, and that, like, whatever that story was. And then when you were younger again, and you were playing netball, and you weren't allowed to get your ears pierced, and the story that you had around that.
I can't even remember saying that to you. Wow.
Yeah. So there's all these other stories, right? And then we really landed on the story of when you were in the garden with your dad. And that's like, you were 5 years old, and we went all the way back there. And you said to me, like, it wasn't like he was being mean. He wasn't being mean. He loved me. He thought I was super special and super precious and all of the rest of it. But this is exactly the important part of it. We can logically know a lot. We can see things from an adult perspective and know a lot. We know, your dad was probably just busy gardening, and we've done it as adults ourselves. Go and busy the children with something else. Oh, like, I'll time you whilst you run upstairs and just stay there for a while, like, it's just so funny, like, these tactics and things. And and that's when we become so aware as adults how the interactions that we have with children are so important, right? And you were saying, like, I know that he loves me and he values me, and I was so cute and lovely, and I was really chatty, and he said to me, like, you're so good at talking and things like that. But what you were ignoring at that time was your feeling. You intuitively knew as a child that he was kind of palming you off, right? He was kind of like, I'm busy. Like, so when you tuned into that, okay, how did you actually really feel? Regardless of whether as a child you still expressed your happiness and still were silly and all the rest of it, there was a part of you in your heart, in your chest, that you were saying felt unseen, unheard, alone, unsupported, and you were trying to get his attention and you didn't know how you could get it, right? So this behavior and these things that started getting installed as a child have subsequently played out in your adult life in so many ways that we spoke about in the session, which we probably won't have time to go fully into in the podcast. But they played out in your relationships. They played out in the fact that you get validated by the way that you look, and that gets you attention, and that's the attention you crave from it as a child with your dad. And these were all playing out in like your narcissistic relationships as you were in your adult life and all the rest of it. And really, when we sunk into that feeling of just like, this makes me feel sad, and you want to be heard and all the rest of it. And the beautiful part will I guess we'll skip through the rest of this story because there's so much to it. We could be talking for ages. But the beautiful part, and I think the part that you really enjoyed the most, and I you were crying and you really, really felt it. And I was looking at you and you were smiling, even though you had tears streaming down your eyes, was when we introduced you as your adult self walking in to that scene in the garden, and you walked right up to this child version of you. And maybe you can take it from here as to like what happened in the garden with you and your child self.
Yeah, it was really like, I can't even remember saying half of that stuff to you. So when you just told me now, it's like, I can't even remember. I can now. But it was weird because you got to this place and you, with Steph, like through the session, she had me visualizing like being in the garden with my dad. I was 5. I knew exactly what I was wearing. I knew what I looked like. It was so bizarre in a good way. And then she said, okay, I want you to go and meet that little girl. And I was like walking and I went onto the deck and I could see the little girl. And then all of a sudden, because I had my eyes closed and I was lying down on my back, right, my head on the pillow, and all of a sudden these tears were rolling down my face. I could not stop them, like a lot. I'm not talking like 1 or 2. It was like tear, 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 tear. And then I saw the little girl and I saw me and I was like, oh, this is like, oh my God, this is a bit weird, but go with it, Barbara, it's okay. And then you said to me, what do you want to say? Something like, what do you want to say to a little girl, or say something to a little girl? And all of a sudden, it was random, but I ran into my own arms, and then that broke me, and I was just like, oh my. And guys, I've done a lot of work on my inner child. Like, this is not the first time. This is the first time doing something like this, but I've done a lot of therapy work, and like I'm aware of the inner child and all that stuff. So it's not the first time I've done this stuff, but it was the first time where I saw myself, and you were like, say this to Barbara, but little Barbara, typical, was like, I'm just going to run into her arms. And she literally just ran into my arms and I just hugged her and I was like, it's okay. It was just such a mind-blowing experience because I was just like crying my eyes out, could see myself, and I was hugging myself, and it's like, I've got your back, mate. You're all safe, giving my dad the fingers. The adult Barbara was like, fuck you, see ya, I don't need you anymore. And typical adult Barbara, and the young Barbara just had this massive smile on her face, and she was so happy, and she was like clinging on to me and almost choking me with her arms around my neck, and just wouldn't let me go. And she was just so happy. Like, finally someone saw her. Finally someone loves her.
Yeah, validating her and seeing her and hearing her, and also explaining to her, because there was a part in that a lot of the time children can't process emotions because they're so confused at what's going on. They don't, they're so emotion led that when it's not explained to them, they just don't understand, and that creates that sadness in them, right? So I got you to explain to her what is going on, you know, explain to her what's going on with dad, what's going on with you, what the whole situation, and say like, you are so precious, you are so seen, like all the things that she wanted to hear. Like, you are your ultimate parent. And as I was saying to you, sorry, in your session, I said to say things to her like, I am you and you are me and we are safe and look how far we've come and it's okay, it's always going to be okay, and all of these things. And it's just so beautiful because when you can nurture that part of you, it's like nurturing the foundations, the roots of who you are. And if we neglect that, of course we're always going to feel unsettled in life if we don't have a relationship with that inner child. She is the foundation to everything that we feel as an adult. So when we can change that and give her the love, or him the love that they needed in that moment. And again, just to stress, it doesn't mean that they weren't getting love, but it's what they were feeling, the interpretation of their emotions that they don't have the cognitive ability to do at that age. That's the important part of it, right? You know, and just knowing that you're never alone, you know, and in the same way, you are the universe is in you. We really are so connected. And without that connection to self, how can we expect to have connections to others or connections to the universe? Like, it all starts with that inner self. And you did it so beautifully. And you know, we came out of it, and it's just like showing forgiveness to ourselves, showing love, showing thanks and gratitude and all of those things. And yeah, obviously there was a lot more to the session, and we spoke a lot about your past relationships and how they have all played out. But then when we then went back through, so then what we do is, once we've gone to the root cause, we travel back in time to all the other places that you went to, or the other memories that you went to, and retell the narratives there as well. And then, you know, you're going back to the 42-year-old Barb who's in her room at home, and all these things on her plate, and all these feelings, and you now say to yourself, I can do it, you know, rather than I can't do it. I've always done it. I always will be able to do it. And really just affirming that actual core inner belief, and feeling that confidence from within. Yeah.
It was cool. And I think you got a bit emotional too, because
I did. Yeah, I was crying.
because you were like, oh, what did you look like as a kid? And I said, I had like shoulder length, really white blonde hair, like blonde curls, like piercing blue eyes, like bit of rosy cheeks, and like real little jagged teeth. And
Yeah.
I said, no, but I know I was very sweet, and like, oh, I'm not like a good girl through and through. I'm, you know, can be a bit naughty sometimes, but like it's really sad because I was such a sweet, sweet girl. And that's what you said to me. Oh, you're such a sweet, sweet girl. And then I found some photos after our session, and I thought, I'll just send them to you. And you're like, oh my God, that's exactly how I pictured you, Barb. And I was like, oh.
It was honestly, it was so sweet. And I think when we imagine ourselves as children, there's just, you can feel it. Like, I was feeling it when you were feeling it. That wave of emotion, you're like, oh my God, this like literal wave of love comes in. You just can't not have it. Like, it's so precious. And you know, especially if I'm working with mothers, for instance, like, you know, I just say, you know, they know what it, imagine yourself as your own child. Like, you know how much you love your child, right? You know how just like they don't have to do or be anything. You just love them, you know. And it's the same with us and ourselves. So yeah, that was really, really, really beautiful. And then when we finished and I asked you all those questions again, because we finished the session off with the same questions, the shifts that you had were like amazing. Everything went to basically the most extreme end of the spectrum. So the things where you were like 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 before, you were now like 0, like complete release of those negative emotions. And where you weren't feeling that valuable and things, went soaring up. And like, even with the alone feeling, it, like, you know, nothing in your actual direct life has changed, but your feelings towards it has changed, and you went from an 8 to a 0. Like, you were just like, I feel great. Like, you can't explain it, it's just that you feel different.
Yeah, I couldn't explain when you said to me, okay, because I knew what you were doing by, okay, I'm gonna ask you some questions at the end. I was like, oh yeah, all right. I got you. I know what you're trying to do here. And then when you asked me, I was just honest, and you feel so powerful. And I felt after that release, like literally after that release, after that cry, and it wasn't a "Ma," it was just tears rolling down my face, but it was really happy. And like, how cool is it to go and see? And it's not scary, it's not freaky, but you know, I was just such a cute kid, and it just upset me too, because I was such a good kid, such a cute kid, and no one, apart from my school teachers, no one really saw me and helped me and was there for me, and I was so alone. So it all kind of ties together. But when I saw that little girl, I was like, and she just looked up at me and was just like, oh, like I can see that look in my eyes. It's just, someone please love me, I'm so alone. And then when you got me to see her, I was just like, oh, I'm out. Like, I'm done. Peace out. Like, I'm so done. I'm so emotional. I cry at blimmin' ads these days, so anything gets me going. But this really got me going, and it was a different, I've never cried like that before, and it was just such a
really from the soul. Yeah.
Anyone has a chance to do something like this, please do it. It's such a rewarding gift that you can give to yourself, because you're caring for yourself, you're loving yourself. And through this date night, you know, it was such a cool date night for me. It was something different, and out of it I felt so powerful, I felt so loved. And you know what, guys, this stuff doesn't go away unless you kind of confront it. And I knew that there was something missing, and I'm sure you and I will probably have other sessions in the future together anyway, but it was just something that I feel like, when you asked me all those questions, I was just like, 1's the lowest, guys, and 10's the highest, and you have to rate them like on how you're feeling in that exact moment. And when you asked me those questions again, I was like, yeah, I feel good, I feel powerful, I feel strong, I don't feel alone. Like you said, I couldn't explain it, I just felt coming off a high. Like, I just
yeah.
yeah.
And then I gave you like this little like thing to do after I just messaged you on Instagram, because I was like, oh, I forgot to tell you, like, something that I love to do, and maybe if your listeners just want to do this anyway, they don't have to have done the session, but find a photo of yourself as that girl, that little girl. And you know, I personally like have it as the screensaver on my phone, because usually we put the things that are most valuable to us on our phone screensavers, right? Like, usually it's our pets or our partner or our kids or whatever it is, right? But if you choose to put you on there and say, you know what, it's me and my love for me and myself and my dedication and devotion to her first, and then my overfilled cup can flow beautifully into the rest of my life. Like, they're just that's there as a little reminder, you know, like, oh yeah, there she is, checking in on her, you know, like, it's just so cute. And I love that you found all those pictures of yourself and just can really nurture. And I think another thing that's really, I remember when I came home, my mum, she had all these like home videos, right? And I hadn't watched these home videos in 20 years, right? And I had this certain memory of how I was as a child and this and this. But then when I was watching it back, watching these home videos back with adult eyes, I was like, oh my God, how precious, you know? And you see yourself differently. And it's so healing. It's just so nice.
It's so innocent, isn't it? Like, it's really cute and really innocent to see yourself as a kid.
Yeah, it really is.
Through adult eyes.
Yeah.
But it was just so, it literally was healing. And I've got a big smile on my face now. But I've done a lot of things in my life, but I've never done anything quite like that. And it was just anyone that's listening to this that feels like something's missing in their life and they don't know where to start, this is a great thing just to do for yourself, you know, and it's all to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm happy. I'm happy for you. And yeah, it's nice.
Oh, God help the world if there's ever 2 of us in the world, because I tell you what, As I saw her, I thought, oh yeah, if I ever was to have a girl, it should just be like that little Barbara. And wow.
Oh my God. And that's another thing you actually said in the session. You were like, I know I'm going to have a little girl. And then we were able to bring that in to, like, you know, you were like, I just feel it. I feel like I'm going, like, you know.
All the things you like, I can't remember saying that. I know I'm aware of that, but I can't believe I actually said that in the session.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah,
feel the same. I'm like, I feel like I know I'm going to have a girl. Like, it's weird. Like, you just have these, like, weird little intuitive feelings.
yeah, and I feel like she's going to look exactly like me and be exactly like me. And that's what I think. Oh God, like firecracker. In all the good way, but whoo,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, you have your hands full for sure.
Yeah, so that was like my date on Saturday night, an emotional release therapy session.
Yeah.
And just to remind everyone, if someone's listening to this and they want to know a bit more about a session, like what I did, what's the best way for them to like get hold of you for a session?
Yeah, the best way is definitely through Instagram. So Happy Healing Hypno on Instagram. I do have a website as well, www.happyhealinghypno.com. But yeah, definitely via Instagram first. And I like to have a little chat and see if everything's aligned, or you know, just make sure that I get an understanding of what it is you need help with, or what you want first, and see if I'm the right person for you. And then yeah, we go from there.
But it's actually so much fun. A lot of people think this kind of work is a bit I don't actually know what people think, because I've been doing it for a while now, but I think people are quite frightened of it, or oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to open that can of worms.
Yeah. No, I love it. I look forward to like any kind of cracking open. Like I love any kind of session, because you just feel lighter after, and I like that after feeling. It's like when you've done a workout and then you're like, yep, worth it.
This was way better than a workout, as in like I was like, wow, if I could bottle that feeling after your session, if I could bottle that and sell it, like I just felt on, like I had the best night. It was like weird, like you can't explain it, but I felt like the best night of my life. and and just felt, yeah. So for anyone listening, I guess it would be if you feel stuck in life, you feel like something's holding you back, like me, you're lost and you don't know where to
Yeah.
go, you feel disconnected from your body, something happened in your childhood that you might want to like need assistance with, or just you're curious about anything, get in contact with Steph.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I have clients, they come in and they say, I have absolutely no idea why I'm here. I feel like everything's fine. So, but there's just something telling me that I need to see someone, you know, and then they are usually the ones that is like the most,
Yes.
you know, so never think that, oh, this doesn't apply to me, because it applies to everyone, you know, everyone has a past.
Every age, every stage,
Yeah,
do what I did, take yourself, like, do it as part of your self-care ritual, instead of having like your hot bath one night, have a hypno session with you, and it's just something
totally.
so cool. Give it to someone as a gift, like it's such a cool thing to do for yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's a lovely idea as a gift, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, put throw someone. No, I mean this with love, but get someone to do it first before, because I know a lot of my girlfriends like this. Oh, can you do it first, Babs? And if we like it, then we'll do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
maybe
Itty
get a
bitty bit.
gift for someone else first, get them to do it, and then when they tell you, like me, how amazing it is, then you'll be like, oh, I'll do it now.
Yeah. Love that.
It was just such an incredible session, and there's so many modalities of doing this healing work, or just learning to love yourself, or working out how you operate or how your mind ticks, and this is just one way. So thank you for just showing me this new way and showing me it's just honestly incredible.
Yeah. And I guess we can just end on saying that, honestly, to all your listeners, there is no bigger gift than the gift of self-love. And this is really a strong way to get connected to that self.
No, yeah, I've never done anything as strong as that. So yeah, nothing comes close. So I really, if you're listening to this and you know me, send me a message. I can tell you all about it, or just let Steph know that I've seen you, and she'll look after you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it has inspired you on your self-care journey. Please feel free to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcast. I really love hearing your feedback. So guys, please feel free to write a review on Apple and let me know which part of this episode resonated with you the most. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about Self-Care Studio or the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. Really look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Look after you, and I'll catch you soon. Bye!